Have you ever turned off your TV and it turned itself back on, whispering your name? This is the story of Yuki Morita and the girl who crawled out of the static to take her place. Yuki Morita had lived alone long enough in her tiny Sama apartment to pretend the darkness no longer frightened her. But deep down, she had never learned how to be comfortable with silence. Ever since she left her quiet hometown in Nagano to study at a small university in the city, the nights had felt strangely heavier, as if something unseen was sharing the room with her. At first she blamed the creaking pipes, the thin walls, the fatigue from classes, but the longer she stayed there, the more she sensed that the silence was not empty at all. It was listening. It was waiting. And soon, it would begin to move in her small apartment in Saitama. The evening hours always felt too still, too hollow, as if the walls were waiting for something to happen. That was why she kept her TV on at night, letting the soft glow and mindless chatter lull her into a sense of company. But on a rainy Friday in late October, the TV became the reason she couldn't sleep again. It started when the screen began flickering despite being on a steady channel. At first it was just a quick distortion, static lines cutting through the image, a muffled crackle in the speaker. Yuki tapped the remote, thinking it was the storm. But the distortion returned, longer this time, stretching across the screen like fingers dragging through snow. She frowned. Her apartment building was old, yes, but the TV was new. Before she could investigate further, the entire screen dissolved into static. White noise flooded the room, sharp and hissing. She reached for the remote again, but froze when she noticed something strange. The static wasn't random, it was forming shapes. Dark patches in the noise thickened, pulling together like ink swirling in water. Slowly, they began forming the silhouette of a girl. Yuki's breath caught. The shape had long hair, a bowed head, thin, trembling shoulders. The outline grew clearer as if the figure was standing just beyond a fogged window, trying to push through. "No," Yuki whispered, gripping the blanket around her shoulders. Her thumb hovered over the power button, but something on the screen held her in place. The girl lifted her head. Not fully, just enough for Yuki to see that where her eyes should have been were only two dark hollows, empty and bottomless. Yuki's heart hammered painfully against her ribs. She managed to hit the power button. The screen went black. Silence fell so fast it felt violent. She waited. 1 second, 2, then click. The TV turned itself back on. Static roared back, louder, like a scream being muffled behind glass. The girl's silhouette was pressed against the inside of the screen now, hands flat against the static, fingers splayed. The white noise rippled where she touched it. Yuki stumbled backward, terrified. "Stop! Stop!" she cried, pressing buttons frantically. The TV didn't respond. Instead, the static hands began pushing. First gently, like someone testing the surface of water. Then harder. The screen bulged outward, stretching like a thin membrane. Something was coming through. Yuki backed into the corner of the room, unable to look away. She heard her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. The screen finally split with a soft tearing sound, and a pale hand slid out, thin, wet-looking, dripping with static that fizzed and evaporated as it touched the air. Another hand followed. Then the girl's head began forcing itself through. Long black hair spilling out in clumps like seaweed dragged from the ocean floor. She crawled out slowly, silently, her limbs bending at unnatural angles as she pulled herself onto the floor. The static on the TV died abruptly, plunging the room into darkness except for the faint glow of the streetlight filtering through the curtains. In that dim light, Yuki saw the girl crawl toward her, fingers scraping weakly against the wooden floor. Not aggressive, almost desperate. When she reached Yuki's feet, she lifted her face. The hollow eyes stared into Yuki's, and a soft whisper escaped her cracked lips. "Don't let her replace you." Yuki shook her head, confused and terrified. "Replace me? Who?" The girl raised a trembling hand and pointed toward the TV. Yuki looked, and her stomach dropped. On the screen, now perfectly clear, Yuki saw herself, sitting on the floor, staring back at her. The reflection Yuki on the screen blinked once, then smiled. The lights in the apartment blew out at the same time, plunging everything into complete black. And the last thing Yuki heard wasn't her own scream. It was the sound of the TV turning on again.